Hey there, and welcome to the Women Aging Powerfully podcast. I'm your host, Leah Vachani, certified menopause specialist and nutrition coach. Each week, I chat with top experts on nutrition, fitness, hormones, sleep, fat loss, and other crucial menopausal topics your doctor might be skipping over. We simplify complex science into actionable steps for your daily life, empowering you to tackle menopausal symptoms, weight challenges, and boost your overall health. We are not about aging gracefully. We're about aging powerfully. So grab your headphones, turn up the volume, and dive into this episode. Hello and welcome. My name is Leah Vachani. I am your holistic health and hormone coach, and I'm super excited to bring you amazing experts. And today I am very, very thrilled to introduce Dr. Brandy Zachary, who is known by her colleagues and patients as Dr. Z. Welcome, Dr. Z.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Leah.
So just a little side note, I met Dr. Z, years and years ago. I think it was maybe 2018-ish or so. And I was immediately drawn to her magnetic energy, but also how she just listens so well to people. I call her a walking textbook because her knowledge just blows my mind all the time. And she's got the creds to back it up. She's actually a unique functional medicine teacher as well as a practitioner and a successful fifth generation female entrepreneur. Yay. She's an award-winning practice owner, and she just had a recent launch in functional medicine that went from 0 to 7 million in 1 year. So this woman is no joke, you guys. A little side note, we used to be local to each other, and now she lives in the Caribbean coast of Mexico with her husband and daughter and a wild puppy pack of 3 dogs and 1 grumpy cat. I love that you included the grumpy cat. Very important.
Yeah, you have to. Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy. And we're going to talk today about something that, I don't think gets enough time. And it's really one of those things that I think women struggle a lot with, and they're also not finding the help they need with the practitioners, or the practitioners can't give them the time they need. So a lot of women are coming here with many questions regarding this topic. And today we're going to talk about anxiety sucks and depression is a symptom, what your doc won't tell you, which I love that title, Dr. Z. So why don't you start by maybe sharing your story, the journey that brought you to this world of nutrition and functional medicine?
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you. It was an unusual story, to be honest. I got my license as a DC over 20 years ago and had a couple practices. And then I had a car accident that put me out of practice, and a completely other career where I was helping practitioners and business owners and teaching and coaching. And I didn't think I would be back directly serving patients with health until I had a massive health crisis. And at first, I was a really good patient. I did everything I was supposed to. I had a lot to lose. I had a 7-figure business at the time. And the more I did what I was told, the worse I got. I couldn't get answers. I had 7 specialists, 8 prescriptions. I was in the hospital a lot, over 700,000 a year in medical care. It never felt worse. And I had to move my business review and move back home. And even before I could restart, I had to be sick and figure out why. So it was a very humbling experience. It was really hard to figure that stuff out. I'm a single mom and I love life, but my brain was telling me that the only logical thing to do would be to die. So I was very suicidal every day for 18 months straight. So really hard to figure stuff out when you're in this state and you're like, why? Why is this happening? And I was declared permanently disabled by Social Security Administration and told I'd never work again. So it took me 3 years. I read all of PubMed. Internet was done. I read it. I had to go back to take classes and go to school to reactivate my license. I wasn't even using it at the time, but I had to go back and reactivate it so I could order my own labs. And it was really a journey to figure out what was going on. I did everything medical. I did everything natural. I had to reinvent. And when I emerged from that, it was like coming out of the darkness where he disappeared off the planet. And I was nervous and scared, but I opened a tiny little one room clinic. That's it. Like whether I was taking out the garbage or serving a patient or doing a consult or blending herbs or doing accounting, it was all in the same tiny little room, probably smaller than most people's bathrooms. And my practice grew so big, I had to move twice in the same year, the same first year. And the reason it grew is because I was like, even with the training I had, there was so much I didn't know that I had to uncover for my own healing journey that I felt passionate that everyone should know this. And so fast forward a couple years, got off disability, I re-entered the land of the living. It's not like linear, it's not a piece of cake. One of the things we discovered is I have a primary immunodeficiency, which means I don't make enough white blood cells to fight infection. And that's not going away. That's like a genetic thing, it's like an error. Um, and so total pain in the butt. And the only reason I even mention it is so people know that everyone has something going on. And whatever you have going on, you can still have a great life, right? So I was determined to have that great life despite things that are going on. And once I had spent years teaching patients, I found so many practitioners didn't know this. So I started teaching practitioners. Um, and then eventually I sold my clinic. I was teaching practitioners so much, and I launched a new offer, and that's the one that you were talking about. So it's been a very long journey, really over 20 years of me trying to figure out, because I was never depressed for the first half of my life, like what happened, right? And so trying to figure out why is this going on. And it took me to Harvard and Princeton as a patient. It took me to consulting with physicians worldwide. I did every medical intervention, like I said, and every holistic intervention, and ones that like even I had to travel out of the country for. You couldn't get them in the US. So I did everything all around. And then I worked with thousands of patients. So one of the biggest things I discovered is that anxiety and depression, they aren't really conditions on their own. They're symptoms of something else. And it's very important that we think that way. Like if you have high blood pressure, that's not a condition on its own. That's a symptom of something. Why do you have high blood pressure? And the proper way to treat that medically is to try to find out why. There's different reasons why you could have high blood pressure. And so we don't want to ignore anxiety and depression can be life-threatening. So we have to take it very seriously. No one should ever feel guilty about needing medical intervention. It's always about fighting to, you want to survive to fight another day, right? But we have to ask why, and discover why someone is experiencing this. And unfortunately, it's so common now that it's almost like stress. I'm going to share a stress quiz at the end for those who are interested and want to take it and be curious. The problem with the word stress is it's used so much it loses its power. And stress is really problematic. Similar to diabetes, type 2 diabetes is becoming so common now that it's like, oh, you have type 2 diabetes? I do too. It's like it's just losing its power. And now depression, definitely anxiety. We see it in children, we see it in the elderly. There's no age group that isn't impacted. And while certainly life has changed and that plays a role in it, we have to ask why. What's going on that people are experiencing this?
Yeah. Wow, your story is incredible. And I'm glad that you figured everything out because now you can share all that information with everyone here. And, Dr. Z, you had kind of a provocative title that you started with. I'll repeat it just if people missed it. Anxiety sucks and depression is a symptom, what your doc won't tell you. So what exactly does that mean? I love it, by the way, but what does it mean?
So, and I train doctors every day in and out, and I work with them and I bring people together in different rooms who might normally grumble at each other and they get along in my room because I'm very realistic and very pragmatic. And I'm not like all negative medical and all positive, alternative or functional or whatever. It's not like that, right? There's a place for everything and everything has its pros and cons. One of the things about traditional medical education is for the most part, a lot of it is to diagnose disease. So it's really sickness care versus health care. They're trying to do better, but they're not really set up for it, right? One nutrition class is not going to all of a sudden cover all the basics, right? And they can't really individualize it, which is unfortunate because that's what people need. But if the wheels fall off the car and you're in a massive injury, you want to go to ER, right? You don't want to come to my office. And there's a lot of wonderful, amazing things that medicine does. They haven't given depression the time that it deserves, nor anxiety. So it's mostly been treated from a medication standpoint and to manage symptoms. Now, if you dig deep enough, I did because, originally it was about me, and then it was about me solving it for my patients. So if you dig deep enough, the research is there and it's still coming. It doesn't hit mainstream. Sometimes people just want a quick answer. I'm not opposed to quick answers, but they're temporary, right? We have to go to the root cause to really solve it. And so basically, your average primary care physician, or even most psychiatrists or psychologists, they're not going to know enough. You'll find some who will, don't get me wrong. I love those people, I refer to them all the time. But the average ones know it's just going to be a script for an SSRI or a script for an anti-anxiety or anti-seizure medication or a benzo or something like that. And none of those address what the issue is. In fact, they're not even asking the question. And that's the problem. So as the public, and it's your body, you live in it, you're going to use your medical team. They're your experts, but you're the expert in your body. So you have to drive the questions. You have to make sure they're always listening to you, and you have the final say. They actually work for you.
I love that. And I think we need to hear that more as women. And I love that you're empowering us to walk into those offices and ask the right questions. I want to kind of circle back to, you said something about, depression is just a symptom. So if that's just a symptom, then what is causing it? Can we talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. And let me say one more thing. I forgot I didn't mention it, and it's like sort of a whole nother conversation, but for someone who's listening and interested, you can start down that path, which is there's a very long history of misogyny in medicine. And even the best practitioners who don't want to be that way, it's embedded in their textbooks. It goes all the way back, Hippocrates and a wandering uterus. I mean, it was just like these ideas were crazy. So there's a lot of crazy medical ideas. And then once, we had enough anatomy and knowledge to go, that's not real, great. But a lot of it still gets impacted and carried forward. Once it wasn't the wandering uterus anymore, it was, only hormones, or everything psychosomatic, or, you're overweight or you're upset about something, so just take an antidepressant. So if you're feeling that way, it's legitimate. Don't let someone tell you that your feelings aren't real, and you deserve to have someone who's going to listen to you and respect what you have to say. I have a policy when I teach practitioners, which is whatever the patient says when they describe their symptoms, they're right. That up front, they're right. It's up to you to figure out. They might have the wrong idea of why it's happening, so you have to figure out why. But if they're saying they're experiencing something, that's true,
Yeah.
right? We don't say it's not true. It's true. We just have to go figure out why. So that's the default policy. Okay, so depression as a symptom. So there's many reasons why you can feel depressed. Most people don't know this to begin with. You can have situational depression because your mom just passed. And that's a very significant reason to feel depressed and to go through the grieving process. So absolutely that happens. But most of depression is treated that way, and it's not. So that when that is accurate, there is a situation where it makes sense and it's temporary. So you don't feel chronically depressed. You don't feel depressed when you're like, my life is great and there's no reason for me to feel depressed. And you don't have like a chronic low grade apathy going on because your mom passed years ago. No, something else has happened. So a situational depression can absolutely happen. But if there's not a reason for it and it's not short term, we need to look for something else. Some of the most common reasons for depression are the same reasons that set us up for dementia and Alzheimer's, to be quite honest. And we have great research and great medical doctors who've been working on this for years. Little side note, our original thought process about Alzheimer's was completely wrong. I don't think this gets said enough, so I'm just going to say it real quick. It's involving the brain. We need to come back to it. And the fascinating thing is, like, most of the doctors who work on the brain and are writing those prescriptions for you, they never look at the brain. And you'll see very quickly, I'm going to tell you, it's not just the brain, but let's stick with the brain for now. So with Alzheimer's, everyone heard about beta plaques, right? We get these beta amyloid plaques, and this is a problem. And so the pharmaceutical companies worked to make drugs to break it up. Sounded great. did a decade of it. We were going to have the answer for Alzheimer's, and it didn't work. And what we discovered is that the beta amyloid plaques were not the cause of Alzheimer's. They were the result of Alzheimer's. There's actually some antioxidant and protective factors of them. So they were a sign. It's like if you skin your knee, you see a scab. If all you do is go after killing the scab, you miss the point. The scab is in response to an injury that has already happened, and it's protective. So you have to discover the original injury. The original injury, and some of this is from Dr. Bredesen's work, the Alzheimer's cure, MD, who's reversed hundreds of cases when before we thought it was impossible. The main causes are neuroinflammation. So this is inflammation in the brain. And inflammation is a broad word. Just it could happen anywhere in the body. Something's upset or something's off. Now, sometimes it happens for a reason. If I hit myself in the arm several times, I'm going to get some inflammation because my body's trying to protect. But what happens is it usually goes too long, or it's an over response, right? It's a chronic thing. It starts tearing down tissues. So think of inflammation as like a sword where your body goes, red lights, things aren't working well. And when that happens in the brain, that's a major precursor to Alzheimer's. And I'm going to bring this right back to depression. Another thing is dysglycemia, where you have a blood sugar imbalance. Think of like insulin resistance, pre-diabetic. We now call it type 3. A lot of people you'll see it in research, Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. This is why this dysglycemia. How does blood sugar imbalance is like the check engine light for your body. So blood sugar is so important, it can't be overestimated. Again, it's one of those words that might become a little trite, but nope, we all suck at it because of our food supply and our lifestyle. Super important. And when you don't do it well, it not only sets you up for these cognitive issues, these mood disorders, but also cardiovascular, heart attack, and stroke risk. And then toxins. So those, chemical stuff, infections, these are the three big things that set you up for dementia and Alzheimer's. And depression, if you deal with depression, you have a much higher risk of getting dementia or Alzheimer's. Why? Same mechanism. These same things happening in your brain will cause feelings of depression. Now, that's not it. That's plenty, but there's more, right? So if your hormones get out of balance, if your thyroid hormone goes too low, or your cortisol hormone goes too low or even too high, you can feel depressed. If your estrogen drops too low, if your progesterone goes too high. So there's all these different hormones that, depending on what's happening with them, you can feel depressed. Then you start getting into the microbiome. This is the gut, the bugs that live in our belly, right? One big long tube, different environments. I describe it like a kid going through school. It's the same kid, preschool, kindergarten, junior high, high school, college, and yet each environment's very different, right? And so different things happen in different places. I'll just give you one because there's a lot. But one example is we now have research that shows Citrobacter, which is a type of opportunistic bacteria. It's a bug, a little critter. We share space. It's like a duplex. We share space with it. And it wants to leave. It wants to live, right? So it's
It
fighting
doesn't
for
want to leave.
resources. Yeah, it doesn't want to leave. It's fighting for resources the same way we are. We now know that when Citrobacter gets elevated, which you can measure with a stool test, and most of us in nutrition and functional medicine use those tests, that when Citrobacter gets elevated, it's more predictive of depression and anxiety than changes in the limbic system of the brain. And that's like new knowledge in the last year or so, right? Really cool stuff. We also know that having a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, which can happen in a car accident that's only 5 miles per hour, or on a soccer field or a football field, or domestic violence, unfortunately, or just a fall, gravity, right? That a traumatic brain injury can also cause depression and make you at a higher risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. So too much stress and a loss of what's called vagal tone. We have 12 cranial nerves in our brain, except for number 10, and it's called vagus, not like go gamble in Vegas, but VAGUS, because in Latin that means wandering. I was like, what's happening? Why is this cranial nerve that's supposed to be in your brain leaving the body? Both sides, and it innervates most of your organs and completely your gut. Turns out it's a super highway connection between your brain and your gut. So when someone like feels anxious and they say, I have butterflies in my tummy, or they ate something bad or an allergy, and now their mood changes. This is legitimate, right? And about 90% of the signal on that superhighway, which is bidirectional, goes both ways, is coming from the brain to the belly. Okay. So I think there was one more. Oh, one more super important I wanted to mention. These are all causes of depression. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have more than one, but there's going to be at least one explanation. And we can't really deal with it until we know what your reason is. So, absolutely, yes, especially if it's life threatening, let's deal with it in the moment, live to fight another day. We got to go to the root cause. And infections are huge. And we see this like in children with pans and pandas, but we have so many different examples and so many different organisms. In pandas, it's strep, right? Strep is the culprit. We'll see this dramatic change in behavior. And literally, you have infectious organisms that are, gnawing on the basal ganglia in your brain and changing behavior. So that's what your doc's not telling you.
Wow, that's a lot to dive in. I wish I had you for 5 more hours, but I don't, unfortunately. But I think you just highlighted all of the ways that really you and your healthcare practitioner become detectives in a way and really
Mhm.
figuring out the root cause. So you kind of outlined that beautifully. Now, my next question, Dr. Z, is okay, why are more women, it seems like more and more women are feeling anxious, especially as we age, and even more so around that perimenopause, menopause timeframe. Is that true? Are more women feeling anxious? Is the depression rate rising?
So I absolutely think so. That's been my experience working with patients and even my experience personally, dealing with some of this stuff personally happened before menopause. But then when I went into perimenopause and then menopause, I was like, oh my gosh, people do not talk about this enough. And it's completely different to, because I've helped patients for years with this, but it's completely different to talk about perimenopause and menopause and then to go through it. And I would always like teach women, you need to get a good night's sleep. You need to manage your stress and love your adrenals. You need to make sure you're at a healthy weight for your body. You need to make sure your blood sugar is in good shape, right? Before you go into perimenopause, or you're going to get this belly fat all locked in and stuff. And I was doing great. And then my menopause was like right after we were in California and COVID hit. It was the worst time ever. And so I felt like a walking billboard for what not to do. It's rough. It really can be rough, and everyone has their own unique experience. So for those who breeze through it easily, bless them, right? But a lot of women are suffering, and there's so many changes. So obviously, what goes around in life, your whole lifestyle and your environment impacts you. But those hormone changes can be quite dramatic, and they're never just hormones because those hormones also signal other hormones to respond differently, or the microbiome in the gut changes, or even the way your liver functions. So, from a functional nutritional standpoint, there's quite a global impact for as we age. So it's hard, as a practitioner, it's hard to get people to pay attention to the things they need to when they're younger, and it's not hurting. But if we can reach them and get them to make healthy lifestyle changes and be aware of this, they're going to be so much happier later because there is a physiological difference once your body goes through those changes, and it just makes everything quite a bit harder.
Yeah, you really just outlined that perfectly, exactly how I feel. And I think that many women coming, especially listening to this right now, may already be experiencing symptoms or signs in their body or their life that, they're not feeling as good as they would like to feel. Maybe they're even dealing with something a little more traumatic. But what if we're a woman sitting right here right now and we're like, okay, I'm ready to do something, I want to change my life, I want to empower myself? What are the best ways to start that and maybe dive into being your own detective, empowering yourself to kind of work with a practitioner or find out, like, what is the why behind the symptoms I'm experiencing?
So let me give you a couple options to just even start at home, and then finding a practitioner becomes really important. We just actually started launching our Find a Practitioner search because we have tens of thousands of practitioners, and there's other ones out there, but none of them were as comprehensive as I wanted it to be, including client reviews. So you can really check out not just someone close to you, but someone who has a specialty. Maybe it's telehealth and it's not someone close to you, but it's the exact right person for you, right? So you definitely want to work with a practitioner. Unless you want to be a practitioner, you can never do enough work to navigate this on your own. I mean, I train all these doctors and nurses and chiros and acupuncturists and physician assistants. And most of them are training with me 5 days a week. So you get what I'm saying? Like this
It's a
is the
full-time
work.
job and then some.
Yes, this is the work they're putting in. And they bring their cases and all this kind of stuff. So definitely working with a practitioner who will listen to you, respect you, make it a partnership, um, give you their best, look at you as a whole, be that detective, dig in, give you their best recommendation. And if you say, honestly, doc, I'm not going to do that, they'll give you another one, right? That's the kind of relationship you want to have. Not someone who's so rigid to any one philosophy. Like they should be able to adapt to you, always tell you what's real and what's going on. But I always tell my practitioners, don't get lost in a philosophy, you just get lost in that person, right? Like you got to be with the person who's in front of you. And when that's going on, they'll have 30 different meal plan options or completely customized, right? There's not just one for everyone. Now, if it's you just at home starting, I think the first thing would be to sort of like write down how you're feeling, get in writing, sort of organize your symptoms, and validate what you're feeling. You're not wrong. You're not crazy. You're not unusual. But let's start looking at it and addressing it. And the motivation for doing it, besides the fact that you feel like crap right now and you want to feel better, is a lot of people aren't addressing these things and they age terribly. And it's miserable to see. You don't want to be in a SNF, a skilled nursing facility. And thank goodness for the people who are doing it, but that's not where I want to age. It smells like urine. People forget who they are. You're trapped in a bed, hooked up to wires. If you want to have motivation for taking care of yourself now, go visit those. That's how a lot of people are aging. And just more and more of us are going to age that way.
Yeah.
The more of us are getting older, the boomers are really quite old. They're like headed there now. I'm dealing with an aging parent, right? All of those things. And that's not how you want to age. While you can't control or predict everything, there's a heck of a lot you can do. And the most important thing, of course, is food. And I
Mm.
love food. And
I
I've done, yeah, I like come from fat on both sides of my family. I have one aunt who's like almost 500 pounds. So I've always struggled with weight up and down. So I would love to just ignore and eat a bag of, Oreos. That sounds fabulous. But the truth is, like, the food is the crux of everything, right? It's what gas you put in the car. So as talking patient to patient, we have to deal with it. Talking practitioner to practitioner, that's the toughest work you have, is figuring out how to help someone make a change they can sustain. It's by far the hardest piece of the job. So for those of you who are doing things, all the basics, the self-care, not lying to yourself, having self-awareness, ditching people who are toxic in your life, getting enough good fluids, start getting some tests so you can see what's really going on. There's people slightly overweight who are actually healthier, and some people who are skinny fat, right? You don't know what's real unless you look under the hood. Sleep, movement, mindfulness. These are essential cores that no one can get away with skipping.
yeah,
And I've tried. If you could, I'd tell you how.
I agree with all of that, especially food being the crux. As a nutritionist, I'm very happy you said that. And I think that women that are struggling with anxiety and or depression, it's one of the most elusive things I think is hope sometimes. And I think that what you've outlined is that, yeah, while there might be many causes, many issues to kind of look into, you seem to be also sharing what I heard was a message of hope that you can find ways to remedy this. And I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have a testimonial of a patient you want to share that might align with some of the women listening here?
Oh gosh, there's so many different ones. I mean, I've had patients that were able to get off of psychotropic drugs. I've had patients that were on disability and barely visible. I was thinking of one, he had a terrible case of Lyme and able to return and go back to his corporate job. And there was someone who found me, someone referred him on a beach. He was literally dying and wasting away. I thought he was homeless when he came to the office. The transformation was remarkable. I've had people who needed to stay on medication, but were able to get back a much better quality of life. So yeah, I've seen so many people. Let me just say, as unique as you feel, there's always someone else out there like you, and there's the right practitioner for you. I'm a zebra or a unicorn in most places I go, and it takes a lot more work to find support for me as a patient, right? Like I'm the one teaching the practitioners, but I still have to find a practitioner. So since I'm teaching them all the time, I go through a lot of practitioners because my knowledge always goes higher, right? So then I just have to keep going and going and going. That's how I ended up at Harvard and Princeton and, amazing physicians in Australia and, all sorts of things like that. But there's always support. There's always people you can find. And sometimes you might work with someone for a little bit of time and then you move on to someone else. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, you live in your body, you're the expert. I think the most important thing is not only is there hope, but more, I want to caution you not to let these problems continue. Don't do something to work at it. Don't let an extra day go by where you suffer or stay mindless because you don't deserve it. You deserve better. 100%.
That's such a great message. I think we should just maybe leave it there because that message of hope, I know when people are struggling is really important. And doing one thing is better than nothing. So just get started.
Absolutely.
Dr. Z has shared with all of us a quiz you can go take. I encourage you to go check that out. Check out our website. I'm really excited about what you shared about the practitioner search engine is it launched already or is it coming?
It's like the end of this week, so by the time everyone's watching, they should have it up, and we'll continue to work on it. But yeah, the same software developer that built our lab analysis, the only one of its kind worldwide, is the one who built the practitioner search. So
Okay, that's
amazing.
really exciting. That's
Yeah.
really exciting. Thank you for all the work that you do, Dr. Z. I mean, you've really pushed this ball forward in proper patient healthcare. I mean, thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And likewise, right back at you. Thanks for having me here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, lovely listeners. Before we go, remember, this is just the beginning of our journey together. If you're excited to explore more about hormones, weight loss, and stepping into your power, check out leahvachani.com to see how you can join me in thriving through menopause. And don't forget to stay connected with me on Instagram at Leah Vachani for daily doses of laughs, inspiration, and insights. Until next time, stay fierce and fabulous and keep owning your journey wherever you are in the world.